mentally evil. There are already physician groups talking about what they consider to be irreparable harm that can come from doing this. And to me, this is just a question of basic decency.
That's Oregon Senator Ron Wyden talking exclusively with KGW about the separation of immigrant children from their families at the U.S.-Mexico border. Nearly 2,000 children have been separated from their parents at the border in the past 6 weeks. Hello, everyone. I'm Nina Melhoff. Thank you for joining us. This is under the Trump administration's zero-tolerance policy that directs officials to prosecute everyone who entered the country illegally. The children are separated because, of course, they can't go to jail with their parents. Right now, some of those detained by ICE are being held at the Federal Detention Center in Sheridan, Oregon. And today, Senator Jeff Merkley, along with Senator Wyden and other Congress members, toured that facility. Our Art Edwards was there with them. And Art, what did they hope to accomplish today?
Well, they wanted to be able to meet some of the detainees. Stories to find out what they're dealing with and how they're being treated here at this facility. There are 123 immigrant civil detainees that are being held here at the Sheridan Federal Corrections Institution. They are among more than 1,600 people that ICE is holding in federal prisons across the United States as it enforces President Trump's zero-tolerance policy on immigration. Now, according to the lawmakers who met with them today, some of the detainees say that they have been separated from their children, only get out of their cells for an hour or two a day, have little access to health care, and have difficulty contacting family members or their lawyers. The representatives say the Trump administration's zero-tolerance policy on immigration needs to stop. For Representative Earl Blumenauer, the visit hit close to home.
I kept thinking about my grandkids under 6 and what would happen to them if their parents' life were at risk, to take a journey of hundreds and in some cases thousands of miles and to have them subjected to that.
See if we can get into this building.
Senator Merkley says he is going to be going back to Texas tomorrow to another facility there. The other lawmakers say that they're going to be talking with lawyers who are representing the detainees to tell them the stories that they heard today. All of them say they're going to be pushing for hearings so the public can hear exactly what's going on at facilities like this one all over the country.